and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Nancy Lewis. Today we're going to be talking about legislation titled Defund Iran. We're here today at Truman Medical Centers, Kansas City's essential hospitals, and we're here today with Missouri State Senator Eric Schmitt. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here.
So talk to me about this Defund Iran. I understand it'll prohibit the state and political subdivisions from investing in companies doing business with state sponsors of terrorism. That's it in a nutshell, but explain a little more.
So with the Iran deal that was executed by the president last summer and last fall without the approval of Congress, that to me was a bad deal. It's a bad deal for the United States and a bad deal for our allies. It does nothing really to dismantle the infrastructure, the nuclear infrastructure that Iran has built. In 10 years, they could just simply restart their nuclear program. And there's a signing bonus literally of hundreds of billions of dollars, and sanctions were working. So what does that have to do with the state of Missouri? Well, in the Iran deal, a little known or talked about paragraph 25, actually encourages states through their investment policies to invest in countries like Iran. And so there's been an internal policy with the Treasurer's Office for the last 10 years. Sarah Steelman was the first treasurer to do that, to say that we're not going to have any of our money, taxpayer money, go to terrorist nations or banks that do business with those terrorist countries. But with this deal now, it calls into question those internal policies. So this would be to codify that policy, to put in law, to allow voters to decide in November whether or not we want to have any of our tax dollars go to countries like Iran, where their national slogan is "Death to America." I don't think we should, and we'll see how the voters feel about that this fall.
So how many of those countries are there?
There are three. There are three, and it's not a list that we would arbitrarily come up with. The State Department maintains that list, and so it's a pretty serious deal to be a state sponsor of terror. And Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism worldwide, and I just don't think Missourians want their tax dollars helping those kinds of countries that, again, are killing our soldiers, are funding organizations and people to do harm to our allies like Israel. And so I think it's a really important issue for Missourians to weigh in on.
Gonna just make a right turn here. We're going to talk about Senate Bill 572 working its way through, limiting municipal revenue from both moving and non-moving violations. And I guess that builds on Senate Bill 5, which was passed last year, right?
Yeah, in fact, I think last year we talked about it on Newsmakers.
Yes.
What we saw was a lot of cities throughout our state that were using citizens as nothing more than ATMs, using speed traps, and as revenue-generating operations that were offensive, I think, to a lot of folks. People were thrown into debtor prisons. It was affecting the poorest Missourians really more than anything else. And so the General Assembly came in a bipartisan way and said, look, we're going to limit the amount of money you can get from moving violations because we just seen the level of abuse that was out of control. This year is an ongoing effort to Senate Bill 5. We want to say, look, those non-moving violations too, where literally some cities have bureaucrats roaming neighborhoods looking into people's homes for mismatched blinds and drapes and finding them, we think that ought to fall under that same cap of revenue that we established last year. We just don't think that government doesn't exist for its own purposes, and certainly not to continue to just sort of siphon money from folks, viewing them as ATMs and padding their bloated budgets.
So I know you're running for treasurer. So as you look back, what do you think in 30 seconds or less, what do you think are the things that you've been working on that have most prepared you for that? Well,
I've chaired the Economic Development Committee. I think the Treasurer's Office can be a real thought leader on where we go and how we see growth in our economy. I've passed 2 of the largest tax cuts in the history of our state. And there's some things also that are specific to that Treasurer's Office that I've been a part of. Everyone knows the Treasurer's Office maintains and manages the most, the 529 College Savings Plan. But as a father of a son with disabilities, I was also the author last year. We were one of the first states in the country to have what's called the Missouri ABLE Act, which is the same way to save for college, but now you can save for your loved one with a disability in the same way in a tax-free savings account like that. So I'm very proud of that. The Treasurer's Office administers that. So in addition to the economic issues, some of those things that matter to families as they save for their kids' college and for their loved one with a disability is something I'd focus on.
All right, wish we had more time to talk about it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here, and thank you for being here. We hope to see you next time on Newsmakers.